Hey everybody, this is Chris Thompson and welcome to session number 15 of Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel. He's obsessed with Glenn Gould, he's studied Gothic architecture, and has appeared on stage in Henry V with Sir Ian McKellen. He is Dr. Mike Mandel.
Yes, Chris. And here we go again, leading you into the wilds of hypnosis, the inner secrets of the human mind from beautiful cosmopolitan Toronto, Canada, which is the epicenter of global hypnosis.
That is right. So let's start with a little fun here. You're obsessed with Glenn Gould. Tell us about it.
Glenn Gould is the Toronto pianist who died early 1980s and probably the greatest pianist of all time. And a lot of people don't like him because he hummed while he played, and he was just an incredible genius. I guess I am obsessed because I have 80 of his CDs, so that would constitute an obsession, wouldn't it?
Wow, yeah. I mean, I'm obsessed with you too, but they don't have 80 CDs.
You're obsessed with me? That's good to know, Chris. Thanks.
Bono the Edge, and Mike Mandel. Okay, so piano music, is it relaxing? Do you find that it gets you into a creative zone?
Irrelevant. What's the next question? Oh, Gothic architecture. Yes, yes. Well, you knew I did that course some time ago, and that actually has led to the new hypnosis course that I'm going to be teaching in the fall, September 24 to 28th at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto, the architecture of hypnosis. If you want to learn the inner secrets, you want to get a thorough grounding, listen later on in the program. We'll be telling you an awful lot more about that, what it's going to cover, and how you can sign up and come to Toronto and study with me and the inimitable Chris Thompson.
And how did you end up on stage at Henry V?
Okay, well, that's actually true. A number of years ago, of course, Sir Ian McKellen was Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and he's a phenomenal actor. Well, 20-odd years ago, he appeared at the Royal Alex Theatre in Toronto, and he was doing Shakespearean stuff, just solo soliloquies, which is what soliloquies are, and he was amazing, and he did a scene from Henry V, and I was in the very front row, and he borrowed my program to make some point. And then he brought some of us up on stage, me being one of them, and we got to act in that role with him. Of course, my role was a dead knight littering the stage. And as he walked among our bodies and waxed the St. Crispin's Day speech, my entire acting was lying there and pretending to be dead. But it still is true. I did appear on stage with Ian McKellen in Henry V.
Did you do a good job?
I acted completely dead, Chris. I did a flawless job.
Perfect. All right, well, let's move into a discussion of hypnosis, since that's what you're here for.
That's why we're here.
And I think the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is the non-awareness set that Igor Ledochowski had published. And you were telling me right after
I want to give a review on this.
Yeah, right after we filmed the Element Induction, you were talking about it, and you had demonstrated it with me, and you had some thoughts on it. And
right. Periodically, I'm asked from time to time what I think of some of the other hypnotists out there. And generally speaking, if I don't mention them, there's a reason, because I don't trash anybody. But if I think someone is doing really good work, like Igor is, I like to put my approval behind it for what it's worth and say this person is putting out great products. I've never met Igor. I have nothing whatever to do with his organization. I've never even spoken to him. But he is consistently a very good hypnosis trainer. I've listened to a number of his products and just reviewing them. And this most recent one was one of his master courses. It was called the Non-Awareness Set out of Milton Erickson's work. And as soon as I listened to it, which is fairly comprehensive, it's I think 7 or 8 CDs and a little training sheet which you get as a PDF, and it's very nicely put together. It's him working with someone on Skype with a couple of people and then lecturing and explaining and also doing an installation at the end. But the reason this is a very good product is because Igor has a knack for taking somebody's technique, someone's methodology, and making it very, very easy to understand. He has a great ability to teach. And also, he's extremely encouraging throughout, even when people aren't getting it quite as well as they possibly could. So I think he's delivered a really good product, but he has a very nice teaching style, a very nice demeanor, and he's very, very thorough. So there's no doubt about his competency. What I especially like about this is it is a recondite concept. It's a difficult one to teach. I'm not going to spoil it for those of you who would like to buy it, because I don't want you to get the secret here for free when you should be supporting Igor and buying his product. But basically, this is very similar to something I did back in 1993 when I was with philosopher and warrior martial arts, studying Wugar Mosut with Sijo Gary Fu. And I was teaching him this. We called it looping, or at least I did. And it was a means of feeding back someone's behavior and creating a trance. So what Igor's done is made it much more understandable, and certainly the term non-awareness set sounds a heck of a lot better than looping and much more official.
Definitely.
So this is not something for beginning hypnotists, in my view. This is for someone who's intermediate to advanced. If you have a good skill set, you will greatly benefit from this product, and I highly recommend you pick it up and tell Igor I sent you.
Okay, so that leads us to the next thing I wanted to talk about. You have added a little bit of flair to it. Your own. How do I describe this? I'm talking about what you did with the waiter at the restaurant.
Oh, wasn't that something? Hang on, I've got a cough. We're going to leave the cough live. Just a sec.
No editing in this podcast.
No editing in this podcast. Tuberculosis.
At least you didn't cough into the microphone like some people.
We're not going to say who. Now, listen, you got me going off on a totally different tangent now. But the waiter, yes. This is a very interesting thing, and I thought we should mention indirect hypnosis and conversational hypnosis, which is another thing that I do. A couple of weeks ago, last week, in fact, I had occasion to have... Time distortion. I had occasion to have a wonderful lunch with 3 excellent young hypnotists. Didi Vergados, who is the guru of weight loss and weight management, and she's a phenomenal student of mine. Also, Gabriello Pittman, of Gabriello Pittman Live fame, and you've got to Google him. He has a show coming up in Toronto at the Black Swan, I think June the 9th, and I'm going to be there. Check out his show. Gabriello is doing his PhD in physics. He's a very bright young man, and he's an excellent hypnotist, really fast street hypnosis. And also, one of my favorite bass players from the band Zodiac and Black, Hank Stone, had come over from England. And he's an amazing hypnotist as well. Both of his parents are hypnotists. So, he jokes about it and said, Dad, I want to be a doctor or an architect. No, you're going to be a hypnotist like they are. So anyway, Hank was having lunch with me, Didi, and Gabriello. And we're sitting in a restaurant in Toronto. And we started talking about messing with the waiter when he came over, because I told the story about giving the waiter amnesia when I had dinner with our friend Paul that time. And so I said, let's do it covertly. Every time he comes over, we'll just work in sequence, and we'll be throwing embedded commands into the conversation that are ostensibly normal conversation, but are really aimed at him. And so we started saying things like, and I told that man, forget it, just forget all about it. And then Didi, when he came back, would say, you don't remember anything about that. That's just the way how life works. And we kept layering this on. And then Hank and Gabriello were bringing in confusion and so on. Well, anyway, the waiter started screwing up every time he came to our table. He forgot to bring his cutlery. So when we asked for some, which came wrapped in a napkin, he only brought 2 sets, and there were 4 of us. So we hid the 2, and Gabriello said he'd forgotten to bring cutlery, and he brought 4 sets then, which we hid. And then Hank asked for cutlery and said he'd forgotten. He said, I'm sorry, I forgot it again. We wound up with about 20 sets of cutlery at our table, and he didn't notice. And I realized he was starting to fall under our spell. And so I took the menu from him. Here's how the working of it went. He handed me the menu, and as I asked for the menu and took it, I did an apposition of opposites. So with the other hand, I handed him my half-drunk glass of beer and said, could you pass me that menu, and would you mind setting this beer on the corner of the bar over there, which was 25, 30 feet away? And he said, of course. He hands me the menu, takes my beer, sets it on the corner of the bar. And he comes back, and Hank said, and we'd like some cutlery. He said, I'm sorry. He goes and brings 4 more sets of cutlery for us, sets it down, and I said, and I'll have my beer back now. He said, certainly. Brought my beer, handed it back. I said, we won't be needing the menu. I gave it to him, and I said, you can take my beer and put it on the corner of the bar. He said, yes, sir. Did the same. Never questioned how ludicrous this was. He moved back and forth with my beer about 3 times. Then when he came back to our table, I dropped him into trance with something I call the triple bind method. And I'm not going to give it away because I'm going to be teaching it in September. The triple bind will throw someone into a trance even across a room. And it's phenomenal. I did it on a 17-year-old student a while back and freaked her out. So I started talking to the waiter in a certain way, set up a triple bind. He begins to go into trance. He sat at our table, and I just said, eyes closed now. And you could see him fighting, trying not to close his eyes. And Didi pointed out he was furrowing his brow, trying not to. So I just passed my hand in front of his eyes, and bang, he dropped into a somnambulistic state. So I said, what's going to happen is this. When it is time for us to pay the bill, I will offer to pay with my Toronto Public Library card instead of a credit card, and you will accept it as being completely valid, and we'll totally forget all about this. And counted him back up. He came back. We finished the conversation we were having, so he sewed up the loop. He totally forgot all this. He dropped into unconscious awareness, and out of conscious awareness, he went back. I think he probably brought us some more cutlery at this time and gave my beer back yet again. And then it was time for the bill. And he brought it over in one of those leather folders. And I said, I don't have a credit card, but I do have this Toronto Library card. He said, yes, we accept that. I said, okay. So I handed him my library card, and Didi and Gabriello and Hank were all laughing, and he took the bill, walked across the room, and we could see him behind the bar trying to make it work in the Visa machine. Then he gave up, and because it didn't fit his model of the world, he stopped questioning. He just came back and handed me the library card in the folder sticking out. I didn't sign anything. I took the card, said thank you, and as I took the card out, I handed him the folder back, and he walked away. And then we brought him out of it and gave him full recall, and he was quite surprised. His face flushed with integration when he remembered. So, young Ryan, our waiter, we're very, very sorry for what we did, but you were a phenomenal subject.
And hopefully he got a good tip.
Yes, I think he did. We did wind up paying the bill, by the way. We didn't leave it on the library card.
Of course.
I hate those overdue fines.
And now, overdue fines, nice. Now, I wanted to come back to something that you said, because I picked up a fine point that I think a few of the listeners might not understand if they haven't been taught this by you before. But you said that you brought him out of trance, and then you continued the conversation that you
where
were
it
having.
left off.
You
Yes.
closed that loop. So explain, what were you talking to him about before you sat him down and put him in trance, and then how you closed that up, and what does that do to a person's mind?
Okay, well, basically, he was still carrying on the conversation. I said, how do you feel when you're at our table? And he said, well, I'm feeling confused over here. And so I fed it back, and I said, that's right, you're feeling confused, aren't you? And he nodded yes, and I nodded in time with him. And I said, when you sit down, we'll talk about it. So we sat down. We're beginning to get compliance. I said, how long have you worked here? He said, I've been here 2 years now, and I watched in his eyes, went to visual access of recall, eidetic visual imagery up and to the left, consistent for a right-handed person. And so then I dropped him into trance. And when he came out, I said, and how long have you worked here? He said, I worked here 2 years. I said, 2 years. Now that then completed what we were talking about and zipped up the loop. Some people are vulgar and say zipped up the fly, but in reality, you know what I mean. We closed the loop, and all of that dropped into the unconscious until it was indicated to him later, whereupon he gradually began to remember it again.
Okay, so it gives him a temporary amnesia for what has just happened.
Indeed, which is great if you're doing any kind of change work. This stuff is effortless, and this is the sort of stuff I'll be teaching in my course in September.
Awesome. Okay, so next up, we want to talk about...
I want to talk about this website. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so
we're not going to say it by name.
No, we're not, but we published online.
We're going to give you a lot of hints.
On YouTube, we put the Element induction online, and if you go to...
Out of the goodness of my heart.
It's an awesome video. In fact, we put 3 up that are awesome. We only intended to do the 1, but we recorded a fantastic demonstration of you doing the Element induction properly.
Well, so many people leave so much out. They leave out all the yes sets and compliance sets and just jump right in because they're rushing it.
I've seen worse than that. I've seen people leave out the complete physical relaxation part altogether.
Oh, but that's my version, Chris. That's how I do it. No, you're doing it wrong.
You don't fix the Element induction.
Because it ain't broke.
Right. So we put the videos up on YouTube. Now, you can get them at MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You'll find them on the blog. You can also just head to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user, singular, no S on user, /Dr. Mike Mandel. And that's the Mike Mandel channel. So you'll find the videos there. So we put the videos up, and then you wanted to share them?
Are all the ones I did there, including the lecture for the engineering faculty? Okay, good. I just want to make sure they're all in one spot.
And we're adding more all the time.
Yes, I put these videos up just to be a nice guy because I see so much poor technique. The problem is, and please hear me in this, what I mean, this isn't an arrogant thing. The problem with hypnosis that you don't run into in pretty well any other field is everybody who does hypnosis is an expert. Everybody is a self-proclaimed expert, even if they've been doing it for 2 weeks. And it's not the case. I mean, there's a really, really bad technique online. There's poor technique. There's ineffective inductions, useless interventions, things that are essentially anti-therapy rather than therapy. And so we wanted to put something good up there for free, so maybe therapists and other hypnotists would use this and apply it to their lives. Well, when we did, we started getting all this resistance because it had our website, our web address on the bottom. And so we didn't, make a big deal of it or anything. But there's been a number of things that happened with this particular website, which shall be nameless. This isn't YouTube. We're talking about something else. And what did they do with you? They blocked you from the site.
Yeah, I was publishing some content, just no links to any websites, just discussion around, here are better ways of doing fractionation, because I've seen a lot of videos where people are fractionating really slowly or poorly. Ugh. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but why waste time? So I put a list together of tips around fractionation and a couple of other things. I think I linked to our podcast as well. Next thing I know, account is frozen.
Frozen.
For what reason, I do not know. They will not respond to me.
Well, what annoys me is I then send an email on the heels of them saying, we can't put up your videos until they're checked and all this. I said, that's fine. But you have also shut Chris Thompson out of your website completely with no explanation, and they never even bothered to answer my email.
Apparently too busy.
Too busy. So, guess what, guys? We're leaving you in the lifeboat together, and we are bailing. We will never be on your website again. We don't need you. We don't want you. And you can all sink with the ship and do slow, lousy element inductions together and read scripts at each other. We are gone!
That's right. Oh, one day maybe we'll set up our own hypnosis forum.
I want to fight them in the octagon.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, where are we going?
Well, let's see. I think we should go on to a discussion of, I want to call it mass hypnosis, because the way that the media can pollute people into believing things is insane.
Yes. You're talking propaganda here,
Yeah, there's so many places that we could go with this discussion, but let's talk about what we were just talking about before we recorded this podcast over coffee.
Yep.
We were talking about the idea that, a study will be done and people will make these radical claims that make absolutely no sense, and because it gets published over and over in the media,
people just accept it.
It becomes fact. Now, how close is that to hypnosis?
Well, it's propaganda, Chris, which is what one of my minors was when I was working on my PhD, propaganda and neurolinguistics and majoring in clinical hypnosis. Now, what we're seeing, this goes back to the work of Edmund Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, the manipulation of vast sectors of the population through trite phrases and slogans and repetition and all of these different logical fallacies and logical non sequiturs. The one I saw today that triggered this discussion is the amazing one to me, that anybody can listen to this without questioning it. One of my students, both jiu-jitsu and hypnosis, who you know, Pep, he sent me an email this morning and said, look at this crawl that was on the news station, which is CP24 here in Toronto. He said the crawl said this: a study has shown that pregnant women who got a flu shot during the H1N1 epidemic, which of course wasn't an epidemic to begin with, so let's rewind. A study has shown that pregnant women who got a flu shot during the H1N1 epidemic had healthier babies, period. This is so ludicrously dripping with...
I'm detecting a little bit of what we would call deletion in the Milton meta model.
Well, yeah. It's
healthier than
babies.
what?
Healthier than what? Healthier than babies of women who had flu shots, healthier than Indonesian women's babies, healthier than women who had flu shots who weren't pregnant. How do you quantify what they're saying? And this then led to some of the more ludicrous ones. A number of months back, my wife and I were doing some banking in downtown Toronto, and we were at one of the large banks. I'm not going to say which one, but you can figure it out from the slogan. They said, this was printed in their brochures and on their posters. Now, if you don't hear this as insane, you need to go and get a flu shot, okay? So then you can be insane.
I'm going to wait for it.
Here's what the actual quote is on the brochure and the poster from the bank. They said, borrow to get ahead so you don't fall behind. Now, let's just look at that again. Borrow to get ahead so you don't fall behind. Well, isn't borrowing putting one into greater depth, which should be considered as getting further behind?
This is an evil use of presupposition.
It's just insane. But the average person, Chris, is so bombarded by television, and they're texting every 5 seconds, and their brains are just on hold, and this kind of nonsense is getting in, and this is why I live in a TV-free zone, folks. I don't subject myself to this. It strengthens the critical faculty. I can see what's going on.
And I think it also shows how important it is to understand how copy can influence you. I mean, borrow to get ahead. That's a positive thing. We all want to get ahead so you don't fall behind. So they're attacking both meta systems simultaneously, whether you're attracted to being in a better state or avoiding a worse state.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You are hitting both of those meta systems in one simultaneous strike.
So we're dealing with opposition of opposites again, toward values and away from values. But what an absolutely ludicrous statement that is. And the reality is it isn't ludicrous. That is superbly crafted. And someone did it who knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
and a bunch of cowheads would run out and go, let me get in the cattle stalls and borrow some money so I don't fall behind.
I mean, if we just switch out the word borrow to eat healthier or exercise, then all of a sudden it makes perfect sense. But borrow.
Or if you deconstruct it, go further in debt to get ahead so you don't go further in debt. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. Okay.
That is just absolutely nuts.
I think you know where we stand on this, folks. Let's let it go.
So pay attention to what you see in the media and think about how it can be designed, how it is designed to influence you.
Absolutely.
Because it is designed
to influence you.
That's right. Wide awake now.
Wide awake. Nicely done, Chris. You picked up on that very well. I was going to compliment you just on the that's right, but throwing in a wide awake now is really nice.
Well, I've had a good teacher for many years.
I'd like to meet him. I'm going to study with him.
All right, so let's talk about some of the details of the upcoming hypnosis course and then close out with metaphor.
Yes, let's do that.
So we've got the room booked. We've written the check and put it in the mail.
Listen, guys, you got to come out. We got the room booked. We're at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto, right in beautiful downtown Toronto near Queen's Park, the Parliament buildings. Toronto is a fantastic city. It's got wide, safe streets. Of any city of 3 million people, it is the world's most multicultural and cosmopolitan, meaning you have great restaurants, all kinds of wonderful cultures to interact with. We have amazing bookstores. We have world-class opera and symphony and museums and art galleries and theater, and our streets are safe. Of any city of 3 million, it's probably the safest to walk around after dark. In the night, in the dark. Anyway, having said that, we're going to be right downtown. We got a lot of different hotels in the area, different price ranges, and we are starting the course at 9 a.m. on Monday, September 24th, 2012, and we'll be ending 5 p.m. on Friday, September 28th, 2012. Come and study with a whole bunch of interesting people, make some new friends. We're going to cover stuff you will not get anywhere else. Listen, I will put my hypnosis training against anybody's on the planet. There's nobody who's done it almost 40 years like this, who's lived, eaten, and breathed it for that length of time. Find somebody who's taken one of my courses and ask them. We will give you the best training imaginable. I don't care if you're a complete newcomer or if you're a hypnosis trainer from another system. I can get you to the next level and will.
So let's talk quickly about the types of students that you've taught over the years, because I mean, I know when I came in, I was just interested. I was in the business community, and I was just interested in understanding how to use hypnosis more effectively on myself, but also to influence people and to create changes in them and just be a better communicator.
Absolutely. I've trained, this course has been taken by salespeople, engineers, a sound technician, musicians, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, psychologists, a naturopath,
and
a couple of naturopaths, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists, a couple of stage performers, stage hypnotists, housewives, house husbands,
cable guys.
So anything, whatever you're doing, this course will benefit you. One of my students who just took it on the last round, another man by the name of Ryan, he just took it out of a vague interest. He's a computer geek, a computer technician, and he immediately went home and applied it to his young daughter, who has a fear of blood and gore and gets all freaked out when she sees somebody who's cut their hand or whatever. And he was able to erase this and make her feel much better. You can apply these methods in any area of your life. And even if you're a hypnosis trainer, even if you're a complete beginner, even if you just want to find out what this will do for you, come out and train with me. We have limited space. We've got about 8 signups already, and the course is still 5 months away. We keep the groups deliberately small, and Chris Thompson is going to be with me helping. We're going to have an absolute amazing time with tons of master hypnotists who I've already trained, who will be there to help you and work as resource people. This is a no pressure, no stress course. There's no exam. It's my job to get the information into your brain, and I can do it. And it's a 40-hour certification course.
Okay, now, before we close out with the closing metaphor, I did want to bring up one other topic, and that is something you mentioned already about how everyone who does hypnosis is an expert. There are no certification bodies here really at all, right?
It's all up in the air.
You have to study with someone who knows their stuff.
Get as close to the source as you can.
And I mean, I think it's a bit of a problem when anyone can go out and claim that they're a hypnosis trainer. But
oh, I know.
Is there any way?
It's the way it is.
Yeah, we have to talk about this and see if we can solve this problem somehow. But
I mean, just look. Find out what people's credentials are. If you Google me, look online, find out who my contacts are and the people who hire me, like the Department of Defense and the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice and the Ontario Hostage Negotiators and Microsoft and Cadbury. And these are the companies that hire me because they know I know my stuff.
Yeah, and watch out for the people who have studied hypnosis, who don't want to tell you who their trainer were, never did hypnosis, and now just teach hypnosis.
Did you say their trainer were?
Trainer was.
Oh, you said were. That's a horrendous language infraction.
I'm not editing it out. I'm going to go back and listen.
This is how it happens.
Oh, that's horrible. Okay, so let's do the closing metaphor, and then we'll play the fun music.
Okay, so this metaphor actually goes back to about 1966. I was hanging out with a kid called Bobby Payne. His dad worked with my dad, and we all went up to the Payne's Cottage, which was north of the city of Toronto at a place called Wasaga Beach. Some call it Wasaga Beach, but I guess it's a native Canadian name. But in any case, it's kind of a resort, summer resort area on the lake, and there's a big river running through it. And so we stayed at the cottage Friday night, and Saturday morning, Bobby and I got up, went outside, and heard this squelching sound, and to our amazement, the ground was littered with thousands upon thousands of frogs. I mean, Chris, if I said tens of thousands, I wouldn't be exaggerating. All tiny, tiny little frogs the size of your thumbnail. Little tiny things out of nowhere, all over the grass, all over the roads, all over the sidewalk. And it was the most startling and amazing thing to me. You couldn't walk anywhere without stepping on them. By the next day, they were gone. And I could never get a reasonable explanation of where they'd come from overnight. I mean, they were everywhere, like out on dry land. They weren't all by the river or anything like that. It's inconceivable to me that, 200,000 frogs hatched overnight and climbed up and just hung around Wasaga Beach. And I've heard these stories of rains of frogs and raining fish and all of the above. And of course, there's the average explanation one hears is, well, they were pulled up by a water spout. I've heard that one a lot. That's sort of a common one you hear, which makes you wonder how water spouts can be so selective to choose only one species of animal, which to me is even more startling. But that's what happened, and we never found out the mystery of the plague of frogs.
That is absolutely bizarre, and when you're listening to a story, the only way you can make sense of it is to imagine yourself in the story, or at least that's how I do it. And I'm imagining myself walking at my in-laws' cottage in the grass with these frogs just squishing between my toes. It's just disgusting.
I was wearing shoes. Okay, so we're going to close, and if you're interested in the hypnosis course, September 24th, Chris, how do they contact you for more info? We're going to be posting a whole page on it very, very soon, the architecture of hypnosis, right?
That is right. So we're going to be posting a page on MikeMandelHypnosis.com.
In fact, it'll probably be up by the time you hear this.
Yeah, for sure it will, because we're way ahead on our publishing schedule on podcasts. So it'll be up there by the time you listen to this. Go to the site, check it out, and as always, head on over to iTunes and leave a rating for this podcast, because the more positive ratings we get, or honest ratings really, but hopefully you like it, the more people will get to listen to it. And that's our mission, is reach more people who are interested in learning about this topic. So with that, we'll see you again on session number 16
yes, we will.
Of Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel.
Doe, a deer, a female deer, raindrop of golden.